Hey guys, I'm trying to do these Wandavision things weekly as they come out, so this is it. This is episode 4. The first 10 seconds of this episode hooked me for the rest of the thing. If you thought Wandavision was a slow burn, which it kind of is, episode 4 is the episode that you're waiting on. This is the episode where we learn the extent of what's happening outside of the town, what other people outside of the town are experiencing, and we also learn how Monica got in there and why she was acting the way that she is. But this also kind of makes you a little emotional because we don't have all the answers yet. We have more answers than we had before, but now we have new questions to ask. So in the first 5 minutes of the episode, we have Monica re-emerging from the snap. She was one of the people who disappeared when Thanos snapped his fingers in Infinity War, and she was one of the people who reappeared when Hulk brought everybody back in Endgame. And in Spider-Man Far From Home, it wasn't burdened by all the stressfulness and the chaos. They played it for a joke. But here we see the extent of what would actually happen, and New Rockstars has a very interesting video talking about what would happen if like billions of people vanished and then billions of people reappeared, and it's a very interesting video. I recommend you go to check it out. We see like all these people come back, and then all of a sudden you're nostalgic for, my dog is right here. All of a sudden you're kind of nostalgic for Infinity War and Endgame because you're brought back to that moment and you can feel all the emotion that you felt when everybody was brought back in Endgame, and to an extent Infinity War too, because it's all related to that. And it's pure chaos, but we learn that Monica's mother, Maria Rambeau, had cancer, and Monica was waiting on her to be checked out of the hospital, but turns out the cancer came back and Monica wasn't there to help her mother with it. That just shows a little bit of the ramifications about doing this whole snap thing. Yes, it's a good thing, but everything was completely chaotic. I mean, in Endgame, we saw the best parts of it. People came back, birds came back, whatever. I'm sure to other people, it was just as chaotic. We learned that Monica is actually a member of SWORD, and her mother Maria helped found SWORD. And it was kind of interesting to see that SWORD had existed previously, and it's not like this invisible entity like S.H.I.E.L.D. was. It's kind of a thing where they'll bring in FBI, they'll bring in the Air Force, they'll bring in whoever they want to bring in, and it doesn't look as technologically advanced as S.H.I.E.L.D. yet. I mean, they have space stuff, but they seem to be willing to play nice. Sorry, my dog is still right here. And that's interesting. It makes me wonder if Nick Fury is even a part of SWORD at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. You want to say hi? So we have that. We learn that Maria goes back to work about 3 weeks after the snap, and we learn that somebody else was put in charge, but somebody they knew. They seem to be cooperating together nicely. Things are kind of up in the air for now. I've seen some people say that, oh, this guy's definitely evil, and then I've heard some other people say, like, no, he's alright. I'm neutral on the guy. He doesn't seem to be bothering anybody right now. We learned that Maria is basically grounded because of protocols that her mother Maria put in place, and she basically is not allowed to do space missions for now. That's okay, because now she gets to go deal with Wandavision, and that's where we learn that Westview, New Jersey, does not exist to some people, even though people are like around it. And this is where Monica meets Jimmy Woo from Ant-Man and the Wasp.
How'd you do it, Scott?
Do what?
The card trick?
Seriously?
James E. Woo, FBI.
I'm glad that he's here. He seems to be a little bit more serious than he was in Ant-Man, but he still cracks the occasional joke, doesn't understand the context of certain things. Basically, Maria and Monica get to talking, and they're like, the town doesn't want us to investigate, like they can feel something's off. So Monica decides to send a drone in, and then we learn that when things go into WandaVision, they change set design or production, whatever you want to call it. So that's interesting to see. We get another point in the episode where something else changes. But then Monica decides to go stick her hand inside, and then she gets sucked in and basically just becomes a part of the WandaVision world. It seems like Wanda is in full control at the end of this episode. It seems that way. It very well may not be the case, but even though it seems that way, it could very well be that somebody else is in charge. Monica gets sucked in, and then all of a sudden Sword gets like majorly involved because Jimmy Woo watched her get sucked in, so naturally he calls in Sword or whoever. And then we get introduced to Darcy Lewis, who was a character in Thor 1 and Thor 2. She gets involved, and she has a doctorate now, and basically she's able to figure out certain things that are going on pretty quick. There's this cosmic microwave background radiation, whatever it is, and find out that there's a TV signal embedded in that. She finds out that WandaVision is being broadcast live, and that's when things start happening. They start learning, they start getting out the whiteboard, and they start asking the same questions we have. Why hexagons? Is Vision alive? Why sitcoms? You know, they're just as lost as we are, and that's cool because it forms a connection. Like, we're just as involved as Sword, because we're just as confused, and I really like that. So then they start figuring out the cast and figuring out that these are actual people, and then we also start figuring out how they're gonna get in there. So they send one guy underground in a hazmat suit, he reemerges in a beekeeper suit, and then just disappears, and that's what we see at the end of WandaVision episode 2, I believe, when he reappears. Then we get caught up to episode 3. They see everything play out like episode 3 does, and episode 3 had a little bit of a dark ending because we heard Wanda singing in Sokovian to her babies, and then she got real defensive as soon as Monica mentioned Ultron. And then we learned that that wasn't supposed to happen. Monica kind of just broke through a little bit. And then we start to see what actually happened, and it's freaky just how defensive Scarlet Witch gets when it comes to trespassers in her reality, because we just saw Geraldine get flung out of there, but we don't see the extent of how scary Wanda has become in that situation. So she starts using her powers, and then she just busts Geraldine like through all these walls and just gets really just creepy. She kind of freaks out for a second. She like looks at her hands, and she's just starts like trembling a little bit, and then she fixes everything so that way Vision doesn't get confused. We see Vision come back inside from episode 3, and then that is when Wanda turns around and sees dead Vision. Now this is where things got even darker, because it makes us wonder, is Vision actually dead and this is all just an illusion? This is gonna like be a very sad show if Vision is actually dead and they do the whole thing where Wanda's children never existed. This is set up to be one of the most emotionally compacted episodes or a series of the MCU, whatever you want to call it. But it's set up very just ripely for Wanda to become the next evil villain of the Avengers, and it's a villain that we could sympathize with too, because it seems like Wanda is doing all this because she suffered a psychotic break due to everything that's happened to her brother dying, and Vision getting killed. She's lost everything, and we didn't really feel that at the end of Endgame. So seeing all this play out, it really makes us feel for her. So having her be the next Avengers villain is going to be just sad and intriguing, and it'll definitely solve Marvel's villain problem when it comes to writing, because some of them aren't so good. Why not have a hero become the villain? I mean, this is a chick who could actually take down Thanos, and now she has the potential to take down the entire universe depending on how this show plays out. We see Geraldine reappear on the other side, and at that point she says it's all Wanda. I don't think it is, but if it is though, I mean, once again, this is gonna be a sad and freaky show, because like the first 3 episodes were, yeah, something was off, but this one just shows Wanda being a whole new level of creepy, and I'm looking forward to it. I really want a happy ending here, but we do know that this ties into Doctor Strange 2. I really hope Wanda stays a good person, because if she becomes a villain, that's just going to make it all the sadder. But overall, I'd say this episode probably gets a 9.5 out of 10. Be interesting to see if we go back to sitcoms in the next episode, or if we do a mix of sword and sitcom. I think that'll probably be the way they go. It would make sense, because it'll be a little hard to go straight back to sitcom. Yeah, 9.5 out of 10, and the promos are looking very interesting. It looks like Agnes might be discovered soon. And also the range on Elizabeth Olsen is just so interesting. She's able to pull off sitcom, she's able to pull off dramatic, and kind of villainy. So I hope you guys like this video. Subscribe, and I'll have another one out next week.